All right, we're picking back up with things that move demand curves. The number of consumers. There was that list at the beginning, a couple of slides back, and the stuff that was from Mr. Clifford's video, the things that move demand curves. And we've got this thing here, the number of consumers. Baby boomers. There were lots of kids born after World War II, the baby boomers. Massive amounts of change occurred as a result of all these kids being born, and big changes in demand occurred. Uh, Oops, going the wrong way, sorry. When baby boomers were being born, we saw an increase in demand for doctors, baby food, baby clothes, all that kind of stuff. And as they reached maturity, they got older. The demand increased for things like cars and homes when they were adults. So let's look at this example here. Gus is a baby boomer. Now all these boomers are getting to the point where they're starting to retire. He's retired like a lot of baby boomers, and he loves to play the game of golf, and he wants to spend his remaining years out on the links, out on the greens, playing the sport. And as the boomers like Gus retire, that like to play golf, the demand for things like golf balls will actually go up. It was baby rattles and baby diapers when they were born. And the baby boomers are all going to die at some point. And we're going to start having record deaths as opposed to record births. So we're going to come back to that and think about how that's going to impact demand. But we're going to see that if a whole bunch of these guys retire and they want to play this sport, there's going to be an increase in demand for things like golf balls. I'm going to go a little slower through this one in case I was going too fast before. So demand increase for golf balls because of baby boomers. Price quantity. There we go. Always going from zero to higher prices, zero to higher quantities. We got our, what is this curve? Yes, it's our demand curve. We know we're going to be doing changes, so let's go ahead and call it D1 right now instead of just D, or it could have been DA, whatever. And then we know that we're going to have this increase in demand. And it doesn't say to show the market in equilibrium, so it's acceptable to just show this increase in demand. We're seeing from D1 to D2, it is an increase in demand. As the boomers age and can no longer play because they now have bad hips or are in wheelchairs, what will happen to the demand for these golf balls if the generations, especially after the boomers, are not as interested in the sport? The boomers can't play anymore. The people coming up are not interested in the sport. What's going to happen? Demand decrease because the boomers can't play golf for everything associated with golf balls, golf clubs, and all that. Here's our original demand curve marked as D1, and we have that leftward shift to D2. Remember, decreases go left. Supply and demand with golf balls, boomers can't play anymore. This is wanting to show equilibrium. You're putting both curves on there. This is what this is asking for. So we have price and quantity, and we have our demand curve and our supply curve, and we have our quantity and price equilibrium points. PE1 and QE1 are equilibrium points. There's our price equilibrium and our quantity equilibrium, and we know that we're doing a demand curve because we know the boomers can't play golf anymore and their demand is going to go down. This isn't a supply-oriented thing. We're not even into supply yet, so that's why we're not going to worry about that too much. We know there's going to be a decrease in supply, so we're going from D1 to D2. Arrow clearly showing the curve shifting. The curve has shifted to the left. It's marked as D2. We have our new equilibrium point. We show equilibrium, call it PE2, QE2, price quantity equilibrium 2. And what we see too is the prices will go down and the demand and the supply of these things are going to go down as a result of this. The quantity demanded is going to go down as a result of this. Over the next several years, the boomers are going to start expiring or dying in record numbers. So what's going to happen to demand for coffins as these boomers die? And yes, we're talking about they are dead, they have expired. They're gone. We're going to see a demand increase for coffins. Price quantity, our demand curve, market is D1, increase in demand shifting to the right, D2. Pretty straightforward. Prices of related goods can shift demand curves. The demand for one good can be impacted by another good. We have categories for related goods, goods that are going to have things that happen to them because of what's going on with another good. One is a complement. Complements are things that are always used together. Hot dogs and buns, peanut butter and jelly. There are things you associate together. If there's a huge increase in demand for hot dogs, there's probably going to be an increase in demand for buns because they are a complement. They're used together. If there was an increase in demand for peanut butter, there'd be an increase in demand for bread and jelly most likely. Things that are used together, if an increase in demand goes up for it, one of the things, it's probably going to drag the other things along with it for the ride. So demand increase for hot dogs, D1, there's our demand increase for a hot dog. And then buns, the complement of hot dogs, are going to do the exact same thing. And then we have substitutes, things that are used in place of other things. Let's think about Coke and Pepsi. For a lot of people, these two things are very interchangeable. Some of you will say, no way, I won't drink a Pepsi, but let's just assume you like these more or less equally. That's why when you go in most fast food restaurants, they either have Coke products or Pepsi products, and then Dr. Pepper is kind of always lumped in there with them, because Dr. Pepper drinkers, for whatever, especially in Texas, are always DP drinkers. But you go into McDonald's, they got Coke. You go into Taco Bell, they've got Pepsi, and those are very interchangeable for a lot of people. But if you went to the grocery store and you were planning on buying Coke and Pepsi is cheaper than Coke because Coke's raised its price or Pepsi's lowered their price, a substitution thing will occur. You have the assumption you're liking them equally, but Coke increases in price. You'd have a Coke curve showing a leftward or decreasing shift, and then if you were told to draw both of them, you'd have a Pepsi curve moving right. So your Coke curve, because of a price increase, and that D1's completely messed up, I apologize for that again, and it would go this way, yay, and demand increase for Pepsi due to the price, there you go. Pepsi's going up because Coke was more expensive. Changes in income, we know this is going to move these demand curves. If all the citizens in the U.S. are being impacted by a major downturn in the economy, if you think you might lose your job or you have lost your job, you're not going to have demand for normal goods especially. So this question here is specifically saying if the citizens in the U.S. are being impacted by a major downturn in the economy, what would happen to the demand for all normal goods that are available in the U.S. given this information? You'd have a demand decrease as a result of this, a complete decrease in demand. What happens to the demand for an inferior good during an economic downturn? Remember, when people don't have money, they go to the inferior goods, and so you'll see an increase in demand for inferior goods. Let's look at this for a second, so maybe this will help you. I know a lot of you like ramen noodles, but bear with me. Our macro test case involves college students like Alvin. Alvin and all college students are usually broke. If they got money, they're using it to buy beer and pizza, whatever. Going to college, buying school books, whatever. Since they're broke, they eat a lot of things like ramen noodles and the macaroni and cheese that you got to make completely from scratch. And we're going to call ramen noodles an inferior good. I know some of you love ramen, but they're cheap. They're not really that good for you, and we are calling it an inferior good. We're declaring it that. So if a student graduates and starts to make money, they're no longer going to have the desire to buy an inferior good, most likely like ramen noodles. They're going to start buying hamburgers, pizza, steak, and that kind of stuff because they are gainfully employed and have money coming in. So let's look what happens to the demand for ramen if students graduate and have a steady income, and we're going to accept the fact that ramen noodles are declared an inferior good. Demand decrease for inferior good ramen once a student has a job. Here's their demand for ramen when they were a poor student. There's their decrease in demand for ramen now that they have a job. Expectations about the future can also move these demand curves. That's one of the other ones. Sonny, like other musicians, wants to buy a new guitar. If a popular guitar brand is rumored to be going out of business because of the owners making bad decisions, like expanding into the accordion market when nobody really wants accordions. You got a famous guitar maker. Everyone loves their guitars, but the guy running the company thinks guitars are passe, accordions are the future, and I doubt most of you want to listen to like punk polka or something like that. If a company made this decision, even though they produce something, they take, remember all the stuff we learned with PPC curves and stuff, they're taking factors of reduction, putting it into something nobody wants, it's going to hurt the company. But if people want these guitars and this company's going to go out of business, what's going to happen to demand for those guitars, especially the ones sitting out there in stores right now that could be bought off the shelf? You're going to have an increase in demand because there's an expectation you will not be able to get them in the future. But let's say something different happens. Sonny walks in and he wants to buy a guitar and he knows they've got like a black one and a white one of a model that he wants. And he's got that choice between those two colors, but he's planning on buying today, but he walks in and he overhears the people working there saying that there's going to be a sale next week. They're going to get several of every color in and cut the price on them. They're going to be on sale. Well, he was planning to buy today, but his expectation is he's going to have more choice and lower prices in the future. So how's that going to impact his demand right now? He's going to have a decrease in demand for those guitars as a result of that information. Always remember with expectations, they may not turn out the way you hope. All right, supply curve movement. I'm going to drop off right here, but just to remind you that there is a demand curve and a supply curve. We looked at all this demand stuff. We are moving into supply at this point. I will catch you in the next video.